Yes, yes. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Welcome to the Holy Ground Spiritual Center. I am Reverend Melissa McQueen Simmons, the virtual pastor and spiritual director of this wonderful community of faith, of spirituality, of energy, and all things that we need to grow and thrive in our wholeness in mind, body, and spirit, um, in our holistic selves. So, welcome. And today is our holy experience. As we have our holy experience on the 9th of each month, I call it our contemporary one. And today we have none other than Lucretia VanDyke. And you all know she's my friend, and she's been here with us a few times before, sharing things, especially when it comes to grief and things that affect how we navigate this earth and this space. So she's coming again to bring her gifts as only she do. My friend, my sister of plant medicine, and she have a new book out. I know this is not what we're supposed to talk about, but I hope she have her book to show you all so she can share that with you, as she is definitely spreading the news about spirituality and plant medicine and all the other things that she do. So yes, you are in for a treat today, and I am excited to be here on this receiving end, and I'm grateful. So let's just take a moment to breathe. Let's breathe again and let yourself hear yourself with the inhale and with the exhale. You are here in this space because energy called you here, spirit called you here. You are new, you are a holy grounder, and we welcome you wherever you are on your spiritual journey. Welcome to this space. Today, Lucretia VanDyke will be sharing a story of triumph and spirituality reimagined after religious trauma. I know many of you have heard stories about what it looks like when people have been in uh, places of faith and it has not been healthy. So she is here to share her faith journey or her spiritual journey with you, and how to overcome things. And she may share some stories of the work that she do with clients that she encounter, or in general church folk or religious folk, you know, with what she have encountered when it come to what religious trauma can do to us, mind, body, and spirit. So we welcome you, sis. Let me see if she ready. Let's see. Is she ready? We welcome you, sis. I know you are ready to share a word with the people. I just wanted to bring you on so everybody can see how beautiful you are. And you remember when I say plant medicine, you see she already showing up with her, look, with her medicine. How about that? So thank you. We are glad you are with us again. So I'm
Thank
going to
you for
share.
having me.
Thank you. I'm going to share a few announcements, and then Lucretia VanDyke will be back to share with us. See you soon. So, next Sunday, we will have a contemplative meditation. I will guide us through it. It's going to be 8 p.m. So, usually when I have it at 8 p.m., know that we're going to do some work. I'm still waiting on Spirit to tell me where we're going to lead um, on Sunday. Shadow work has been popping up, so we may have some shadow work. And the third Sunday, the 20th, we will definitely have our Holy Experience Christian edition. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the place. And just want to share with you, we will have our holy meal on September the 1st. I will lead our holy meal, and after that, I will go on sabbatical. So do know, in September, I will definitely be sharing some things from our Holy Ground archives. And I'm sure it'll be something that you haven't seen before. And if it is something you've seen, maybe you will be able to see it from another lens, another light, and be able to gain something from it. Also, next month during that time, let's get some more followers to Holy Ground. Let's share the links. Let's tell people about who Holy Ground is. Next month is also a time to just take some time to refocus as we prepare for our anniversary. We have our anniversary next in October, so that will be 4 years. So yes, we're coming back with our anniversary. So know that I am grateful for all of you who share your time, your talent, your treasures with Holy Ground, and I'm looking forward to our anniversary and what else is to come. So before Lucretia come, we will have another selection from Pastor Esai. And use this time to center yourself and gather yourself. And right after this selection, you will hear from Lucretia VanDyke. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Holy Ground, for having me again. It's so wonderful to join you all and share my knowledge, my medicine, my story. And as Melissa told you, yes, I have the plants behind me. This is calendula, one of my favorite plants to work with that brings light into us all. And so I'd like to begin our session by honoring our ancestors, both known and unknown. So, in several traditions, pouring libations is part of the ancestral practice. So, we are going to give thanks to the ancestors, the ones whose DNA is in our body, the ones whose blood who runs through our veins, and the ones who have shown love to each other, the ones who created the love that is us, and the ones who suffered in trauma. But we also want to honor the ones who taught us some joy. So, I'd like to begin by telling my story about my spirituality and my journey to finding the unique path that I feel like that I walk on. When I was younger, I was raised Southern Baptist in North Carolina. There was not a time I think that I wasn't in church and excited to go to church. Like, I don't know many children, back then or even today that was excited about going to church, but anytime the doors were open, I was there. I was so excited to be next to the minister's wife. To carry her Bible in her purse was such a privilege to me, because it's like, ooh, I'm part of this, tradition, this cycle. But as I began to move through church and like listen to the stories and hear the music, which is my favorite part, give thanks for that song, I began to have questions in my mind. And like, I've always been a person of nature. I feel like nature was my first, and it is my current church. And so those questions needed answers. And as I journey through several parts in different churches and feeling the feelings that I would have and listening to things to be rejoiced, it wasn't when my grandmother died in my early 20s, it really shook me to the core. And the only answer that people would give me was God needed her more, or you know the typical questions or answers that we get, and that wasn't enough for my grief. I began to be very angry with God and very angry with this path. And so I was just, I guess, what some people would call agnostic. I knew that there was a divine. I felt the divine moving through everything, but I just did not know how they could be so greedy. That's the way I saw it in my eyes. So for years, I fumed and became an angry person. And what I found is I sat with my anger long enough and realized that it was grief. And it wasn't until I took a journey across the world to Thailand, where I was studying with indigenous medicine people. And I was in this beautiful Buddhist temple and listening to the story of the Buddha and like the story of life cycles, that death made sense to me. And I always say it took Buddha to help me come back to God. And so I began to heal. I began to find the answers to my questions on a path that was so different than what had originally been told to me that I was supposed to be on. But I really found solace and comfort in these meditations, in this sitting in silence, in this, act of reverence for my own mental status and my own mental healing. So I come back home and I'm like, what do I do with this? I sit and I meditate. And I found these beautiful people in Asheville, North Carolina, which is where I was living at the time. And they did chanting. And so I was like, oh, I, love music. So let me try this chanting. And through these mantras, and in this room of people, I found the same feeling that I felt when I was in church. Everyone there to uphold this positive feeling. And it wasn't about suffering, which is what I'd always heard. We suffer ourselves, and that was seemed to be a regular mantra in churches. And so I began to see these other forms of ceremony and love and how they move through. And that's led me on a journey to really studying. But when I flash back and really think about how long it's been since I've been on a journey of discovering more or feeling more, I remember when I was around 13, I really wanted to go to church with my step grandmother. She was Pentecostal. And my mom, being Southern Baptist, was like, no. And I begged her to let me to go to church with her. And I saw, and when I finally got to go, I saw people laying hands on people, people praying, and people leaving that altar space feeling rejuvenated, feeling like love. And it was just so, boisterous and so beautiful. And I remember looking at the minister at 13 and saying, I want to do that one day. I want to lay hands and heal people. And not knowing that that really was my journey since I was young, working with the plants and herbs and doing things for people to make sure they felt better and co-creating that experience with myself. So it led me on that journey into grief, which I did not realize would be my path of teaching. But the death of my grandmother sent me on another journey, and a journey that could have been self-destructive. But through really reaching out to other ways of prayer really helped me survive. And so moving that practice into this Eastern based meditative practice led me to silent retreats. It led me to reciting these mantras, which led me back to prayer, which led me back to remembering the beautiful moments that I had in church and what that meant to me. It was about community. But then as I began the world of working in the spa industry and the healing arts, I also was very curious about who were my people before they came to America. How did we pray? How did we work together? How did we view God and spirituality? And so I've been really diving into lots of research about who we were before we came here. And Melissa mentioned my book, um, which is African American Spirituality. It's a practical guide to healing plants and folk traditions. And so I talk in this book about some of that knowledge and information. And so I began teaching classes and like taking classes and sitting at the elders' feet of these people who got to tell me the stories of who we were before we came to America, before we were taken and brought to America, but knowing that some of our people were travelers and they were sharing things way before those times as well. And so this has been, and ancestors came up first. And so that's a deep part of my practice. I am biracial. My mother is white and my father is black. And I was not raised in my father's side of the family. So I had to really co-create defining what is a Black woman, what is a person of color, and all of these things. And this journey to understanding ancestors that I would have never met and never got to be with has been so powerful by going back to places like Africa and throughout the Caribbean. And so, ancestor reverence to me is one of the most important practices. It grounds us and centers us in times that we need it the most. And as I've journeyed around the world, I know that I'm never alone, ever alone. I'm always finding moments where my ancestors show up. I'm finding moments that they can show out as well. A lot of us have seen what happened in Alabama, and I really believe that was also our ancestors coming together and bringing community. And so that was one of the biggest important things to me, is also researching how we move together as a people. One of my dear teachers, Subanfu Somé, she was from Burkina Faso. And she really taught me, like, she would have these 3-day long grief ceremonies. And she really taught me so much about how we moved people of African descent together and really held each other. She believed no one grieved alone, no one went through anything alone. And I find in a world that our current world, we have so many ways to communicate through social media, through text, chats, like all these Zoom rooms, but people still feel alone. And we don't check on each other as neighbors. And she would often talk about that in her village, that if someone had a problem and they were sitting there alone, another person would sit next to them. And if they wouldn't say anything, they would go get more people because they felt like that person needed more support. And even if it was just everyone sitting together at one time, not trying to solve people's problems, but just showing you, I'm here for you, I'm here with you, and we will work this out together. And I thought that was so valuable of a lesson for me to learn how I wanted to move forward in the world in co creating community. And she learned so much about having rites of passage ceremonies, which I think is really important. Anywhere from tree planting ceremonies to symbolize, the birth of a child. We have a lot of traditions that come out of Africa that really hold up the youth. And I feel like we're lacking in that in this modern society. So I've gotten to bear witness to so many different rituals that orient around just holding each other up. And that is one of my favorite things to watch is whenever we all gather by the river, we all come together for the same prayer. We're all in white and we all have offerings for nature. We all have offerings for the greater good of the community. Because I think it's important that no matter what we believe in, that we come together for the greater good of the entire world. And so nature has been my church since I don't have a physical place to go to. I feel like after seeing so many different indigenous cultures and having my own experience of moving through and showing myself self love and helping nourish those areas through the traumas that I've had, I see my vision of God has gotten bigger. It's not just this book that we read these scriptures, it's the trees that I walk past. And if I don't pay reverence to the trees and the flowers, and you're learning to utilize the plant medicine, because even in the Bible, it says that I've given you everything that you need to heal. And I find that we cannot love God to our fullest extent if we do not love all the things that God has made. And so I find that just taking a walk and breathing in and taking a mindful moment becomes such a spiritual practice in itself. Looking at the trees, looking at the grass, figuring out this plant medicine of our ancestors and how we can help heal ourselves and our community with that. And so I love to create personal ceremonies for people. And I work with a lot of people who are, Christian upbringing, but feel like the church is not their place. And they try to figure out a way to bridge the two worlds together. And sometimes at these events, these herbalist events, people feel, some type of way or feel anxiety around what is God going to think about me studying plants and talking about ancestors. And I remember having a conversation with a nurse one time. I said, what is God to you? God is the river. They are the trees. They are the grass. They are the plants. They are the songs. They are the ancestors. And they want us to pay reverence to that. One thing does not negate the other. They're all interconnected in this beautiful world. And when you look at different indigenous cultures, spirit systems, and how God shows up. And like even in Ifa, there is a word for God. There is a word for every elemental force that exists in the world. And I think it's important to understand who we were as a people before we came here, what worked for our ancestors in such a way. And even sometimes people talk about if it worked, then what about slavery? And I know from research that our people did not think that people could do that, would work that way. And because of the reverence of nature and ceremony and each other and community, had no idea that those kind of things could happen. And so when I work with clients, we work with a lot of intergenerational trauma. And I feel like the best way to do that is go back to the root of the prayer is one of the most important things. The root of the prayer and the prayer of the ancestors and the prayer of the ancestors across the ocean. I think it was very fascinating. Last year, I was in Haiti and studying plants for a couple months and the people. And I found it fascinating that Haitians really use the term we. And they believe when you say, how are you doing? it's almost like we are doing well, we are doing fine, because we are nature, we are the ancestors, we are the trees, we are the rivers. And I find that to be important to help people to connect to everything elemental. So in times that we need that, we can call on that energy. The water makes us feel calm. The plant medicine helps heal us and keep us well. And then when I'm working with clients, I like to hear your stories and how it's all worked together for you. And we find a way to connect it all together. And we often open up our vision of what God is. I've dealt with a lot of trauma from a lot of my clients in my 25, almost 30 years now, I think, of being in the wellness industry and helping people overcome a lot of traumas, a lot of their first traumas that were in the church. Probably 1/4 of the clients I've ever had, their first sexual trauma happened in the church, being left with elders who could not uphold that sacred gift. And how to help them navigate through that is, we co-create, we use these different ceremonies, these different plant medicines like mimosa. It's a tree medicine that helps pull up deep-seated grief. I give them self-love rituals to help them really come back into their own body, breath work to come back into their own body. And we really discuss the impact of how that trauma has affected you, but also ways to help move that emotion. And I really encourage people to talk, to find communities. Know that there are people out there that are much like yourself who have also had traumas in different situations, and you're not alone. And your ancestors are there as well in your darkest hour. There's been so many beautiful things that have happened for me alone and sitting at my ancestor altar, having coffee with them and being like, oh, y'all, you need to help me today because this one's a hard one. This one is a difficult one. And I need you to come to me. And we talk about like meditation versus prayer. They're really the same thing. We're focusing our intent, our breath, our everything into some higher consciousness. And so integrating them both together, like talking to my ancestors like they're people that's here, having this silence that I'm just being with my own whole self, and then also sending out the prayer to the ancestors for their guidance, and also to the Most High, to God, and saying, I know you have me. Help me move through these ways in something different and show me this new path and show me the light within myself. So, as I guide my clients into having these sacred ceremonies that help move the energy, sometimes nothing can take the grief away. That's not what we're doing. If I could have done that, I would be a millionaire by now. But we have these ceremonies to keep us going. We have these ceremonies to feed ourselves, to feed the community, and also guide us through in other ways of just moving it. It makes the tsunami waves less impactful when we can keep the energy flowing in the body. And we can always come back to a place that reflects ourselves, how I'm doing, and then coming together to heal the greater good of the community. But communication, sometimes you need the words to come to you. And that's what I also feel like ceremony does. So I utilize a lot of different things, but plant medicine and nature is one of my highest and greatest regards. I feel like I just am constantly, I'm like, there's a plant for that. There's a plant for that. And also spiritual bathing, redefining the baptism. Some of the most beautiful moments I've seen have been communities coming together down by the riverside. And I'm always like, how can we bring that to our own self practice? And so your shower can become this very ceremonial act for yourself, using the plants to create teas to take baths in, having these moments that we're creating our own ceremonies. So I think that that is truly important in how we push forward because this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that's what I like to always encourage people to know about their own journey. And I'm like, I try to move away from the word healing because healing means that you're broken. I think there are places that we need to nourish and we need to love and we need to cultivate and pay attention to. And in order for us to be able to be whole, holistic, and well. And so we'll bring Melissa back and let her ask a few questions and talk about some things I may have missed. I could talk to you all forever.
Thank you so much. It's not always opportunities for the pastor to be the student, to be on the other side. So I'm always grateful when I have my tribe, my sister, the people that I know that are doing ministry, spirituality in a way that is just so all consuming. And as I was listening to you share, the first thing I wrote was you said nature. Nature is church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I know you didn't say it in this expression, but I heard nature is church. Nature is church as the sound of nature, the beauty of nature, the art that you see, um, the texture that you feel from the various plants. So I was just sitting here like, nature is church. How can I tap into that? And and you know how I am with animals, even though we don't have any pets. But
Yeah.
animals love me, especially birds. So, can you lift up animals in this conversation? I know you're focused on pets, but I mean on plants, but I know you do nature. So, can you lift up
Oh,
um,
yes.
animals?
Absolutely. Sometimes that is the Most High God. Um, However, whatever word you put to the Most High, that's the way that I ask for my signs and symbols to come to me when I know what I need to do. And it is such a part of my practice is the animals also. I have learned like what energies move with them. For me, the crows equal the ancestors, and sometimes hawks are ancestors. And so when I see them flying, um, and oddly enough, if I see a lot of vultures, I feel safe because we had a lot of vultures when I was young
Oh
that
my!
lived on a mountain. So if I've ever been somewhere, which we know that trying to be a lover of nature and in the South is sometimes hard, you got to make sure that you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I did not want people to take that freedom from me from running through the woods and running through the mountains. So I use the animals to move in a way that I knew that I was safe. So
Mm.
when I see them, and sometimes I ask for when I have my morning prayer, I'm always thanking the Most High. I'm always thanking my ancestors. And if I have something that's weighing on my heart, I might give me a sign or a symbol and a butterfly will come through, and so I know
Mm.
that butterflies are about transformation and change. And if I see a bunch of hawks come in, or the crows are cawing and cawing, there's been so many times that I've been stubborn. And I remember one time I was sitting on my friend's porch. It was after um, my first divorce. I was like, crying, of course, because you have this new life, and you're liberated and you're happy, and you're free from the things that you're having to deal with. But you're like, what am I doing? Like in those first couple weeks, what did I do? And the crows have been coming to me, and like in different ways, there'd just be a bunch of them, and they're just like staring at me, like you know so one morning over tea, they all were in the trees. I couldn't see them but cawing and cawing and
Oh
cawing.
wow!
And I kept telling myself, I'll look this up later, I'll look this up, I'll research the meaning. They did not shut up until I was like, okay, I'm getting up right now. And when I went to get one of my books to read about them, they just all got quiet all of a sudden. So I'm like, it's so fascinating to me, and like to have to when I'm in ceremony in nature, that is the first thing I look for, is what animal is going to come out, and that is part of the story and it's part of the
Mm.
lesson. Deer became really important to me in 2020 when, again, I had to change my life very quickly. I started seeing deer in weird places and red foxes in weird places that they don't show up, calling out, running around in like urban areas. And I'm like, okay, what does the deer mean? So that took me on a journey to like, what do different indigenous cultures see about the deer? What do different cultures? Because I would be on a walk like in Atlanta, and then all of a
Oh,
sudden there's a fox that's just staring at
oh no. Oh no.
me. And then there was this. Then finally, I looked it up when there was like a pack of them running during the day, making these sounds that my friend and I had been hearing in the woods, but didn't know what they were. And so I was like, okay, it's time to look up the red fox. So they're very much instrumental in teaching us, what are those answers. And I highly encourage people that when they're in times of conflict and you don't have your antennas, your spiritual antennas clear, you know, show me a sign of, I even say random animals. One time I was like a peacock and an elephant. Like, where are you going to see that? But I needed to know, like, this was my sign. Because, a lot of us
Yeah.
pray, we pray for the burning bush, and then we see the burning bush and we're like, that's not it. And then we pray for it again and see it again, and we're like, that's not it. Because we're stubborn. We really want to see what we want to see. We don't want to see what the Most High intends us to see.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, I was listening. I said, "Oh, we got to bring in animals in this conversation." So, thank you so much for sharing your story of, I knew you were South raised Southern Baptist. I said, "Well, my goodness, from Southern Baptist. Now you all listen to this journey from Southern Baptist to Buddhist to God to nature."
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, that's a story, that's a journey. And as I always share with Holy Ground on our Holy Grounders, you don't have to just be one thing because we are created in multi dimensions. We are supposed to be more than the one thing we see. We are the things we don't see, that we don't feel. So I mean, just know that it's okay to explore all of your spiritual journey, and it's okay if you change. It's
Yeah.
okay if you change your mind about one. But you know what? I have a lot of notes, but let me tell you what I have, and that was my shout for the night. I would have said amen if I was on here. You said, and this is my words, but you can repeat it in your words. You said, we can't love God in its full existence if we don't love everything that was created. I said, hey, see that's the shout for everything. You know, that's the truth for everything. If we're going to do love and justice
Yeah.
and inclusivity in this world. And when you said that this is our quarter for justice, we in the justice moment. So, and y'all, Lucretia isn't a justice minister, but laid out the template for what we are supposed to do in humanity
Yeah.
with creation, which includes everything you know as living and everything that lives beyond this realm of what we see. Our ancestors, as you so beautifully reiterated and reinforced the value, the hope, the spirit and energy of ancestors as we live and navigate this space. So thank you so much. And you mentioned earlier about books you read. So
Yes.
is there some book or some books you can lift up for people who are on this journey after they have encountered any type of religious trauma? Um, and could you offer the some ways of nourishment, because I'm using your language, some ways of nourishment
Yeah.
and love that they can do for themselves um, because of what they have encountered during religious trauma.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting. You're like, I'm not a justice minister, but I do consider myself. My idea of social justice just looks different than most people because I feel like we all have are like chess pieces, and each of us have a part to play in here.
Mm.
So my social justice, and I work with several nonprofits and organizations and large companies with social justice advocates, leaders of this nonprofit. And my biggest thing is like really helping them create a holistic practice, because if we watch the news and we watch all these issues, we're like, we're defeated or we have to keep going. And I'm constantly in reminder of helping people remember, how are you first of all prioritizing your own joy in your own
Mm.
moment? How do you prioritize your own pleasure in your own moment? And how do you prioritize your own health and mental holistic whole you wellness? Because a lot of us forget we're always in charge, we're on the battle lines, we're
Yeah.
on these things, so we forget to even. And I've had many social justice people look at me and be like, how can you be happy whenever this is going on, these menstrual? I'm like, this has been going on so long. But even our ancestors who were enslaved,
Mm-hmm.
everything they went to still got together to celebrate. I find that living here in New Orleans is each Sunday they would come, you know, the master would have to give them Sundays off. So they would come to
Mm-hmm.
the square here and they would drum and they would dance and they would,
Ooh, I miss that.
and we would cook and we would revere our plates, and we found these pleasures. So that's the one thing in social justice. My work is, I'm an advocate of how are you prioritizing your health? How are you prioritizing your joy? How are you prioritizing, because we know, again, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to be dealing with these. And I found so many social justice people, high blood pressure, high diabetes, it's
Mm.
same illnesses, so many lately are on antidepressants and antidepressants for your antidepressants. And I'm fine with that. Sometimes we need that. But I also remind them of the plant medicines that can help, grief tinctures that move grief, you know, um, St. John's wort sometimes for depression, but you have to be careful of that one if you're on other drugs. But and some of the plant medicines that are helping the root of the issue instead of just treating the symptoms. And
Mm.
so breath work and meditation is really important to me as a way of, just because people don't breathe correctly. And so centering yourself to breathe from the diaphragm. And I really find making a playlist, even if it's your favorite gospel song, whatever, but something that's uplifting, and sit there and have breath work with that. It could be Tibetan healing bell, healing bowls. It could
Mhm.
be, what a Marvin Gaye. Like, it's like
Mhm.
whatever makes you feel that mood that you're in.
House music. House music.
House music is our original, it heals everything. You like sweat it out and leave it on the dance floor. And that's important. So set reminders in your phone. Have I danced today? Have I laughed today? Have I had joy today? Those could be your ceremonial practices that I find so important. Um, you know, I I do believe in like crystal magic and all these other things, but honestly, I don't have a popular opinion, so I write that in my book. I have conjured more things with my breath
Mm.
and God and the elements than I ever have buying $350 worth of materials to sit around my house.
Wonderful. That's
And I
awesome.
also find, like, God made us in his image, in their image, and they created the universe and the world. So therefore, and that is a magic element in itself. So therefore, we are the universe and we are magical. And so for us to not look at ourselves like that as God has intended us to is definitely also walking by his work and not appreciating it. So some of my books that I recommend, I always have to shout out my own book, which I think is a very beautiful
Yes.
integration practice. It talks a lot about history, because we didn't even get into that tonight. Like the history behind colonization and how it has made our original ancestral practices evil or dark, when it is the way that we liberated. Without voodoo, there would not have been a Haitian revolution, which made Haiti the first liberated Black country, which would not have influenced America when the Haitians came to America to do
Mm.
the same thing, to liberate us all. If we did
Wow.
not have those original practices, that wouldn't have existed. So this book my book takes you on a journey of food. It helps you holistically be able to heal the body, makes plant medicine easier, talks about these old recipes of our grandmothers. It tells you about history and these significant people who utilize plant medicine to bring communities together and also to support each other. And
Hmm.
has a lot of valuable information. Another one for me is Subonfu Somé. Subonfu Somé, I spoke about her earlier with grief rituals. She has several books out. I highly encourage you to, go on YouTube. She
That's the
left.
spirit of intimacy.
This one's the spirit of
Hmm.
intimacy.
Got it.
One, the fall from grace. She has so many, but like one of my favorite things that she is a speech that she did. She was a keynote, and it's on YouTube. It's like embracing your sacred self or your sacred gifts. I will watch that YouTube video when I'm like at a crossroads and not understanding. I watch that so much, and it helps so much even with trauma,
Mm.
because it talks about the sacred gift. Like, we are all so important to the existence of the world. So it's like God and your ancestors and all the orishas got together in a board meeting to talk about, Melissa coming to the world, and Melissa's going to do these amazing things, and they're hype and they're excited, and they got pie charts and all the things, and they're eating good soul food, and they're like, Melissa's going to make this big change, and so they're going to gift this child to these two people. But sometimes those two people could have so much trauma that they can't uplift the sacred gift that was given to them because they can't get out of that trauma loop. And so a lot of us take it personal when our parents can't show up as we need to,
Mm.
but they don't have the skills. And that's the beauty of co-creating your own spiritual experience, bringing God, bringing the elements of nature, bringing the original ways that our ancestors prayed, is gives us new outlets and new ways to be able to heal intergenerational trauma. And the one big thing that Subonfu is about, we heal so the children can heal.
Hey, how about that? That's so relevant right now.
Yes, and we
We
don't
hear
pay.
about them trying to dismiss our African American history.
Yes, and I don't feel like we give, you know, Christianity is really beautiful, but our original people's medicine
Hmm.
knew how to uplift a child before they even came to this earth.
Mm.
When you were God's whisper in the mother's ear, they knew what this child would be about. And there are several African traditions that did the listening ceremony. The mother would go and sit under a tree and wait for a song to be sung to her. And then she'd go back and sing the song to her partner, and they would begin the baby process. And then when the child would be born, they would sing that song while the child was being born. And anytime you would doubt yourself, people would sing that song to you. They would call
Mm.
you in. And then when you died, that was the last time your song was sung. So, like, these original ways, and
Wow.
there was God in all of that.
Yeah.
It was so big. And so, yes, Subon Fusame is one of my biggest things, I think, about healing and trauma. And she talks about that, like broken relationships, and how we can view things a lot differently, and how we can view ourselves, and about community as well. I could probably give you a list of 100 more. I just started um, Adrienne Marie Brown's We Will Not Cancel Us.
Okay.
And just ordered her pleasure activism, because, I'm all about, sexual wellness, pleasure, joy. And I think we all should be, especially in this day and age, is, figuring out how you prioritize joy and
Mm.
creating a ceremony around that.
Wonderful. This has been helpful and inspiring, and it's just good to know that friends, family, holy grounders, you can overcome anything. And in
Yeah.
the context of this conversation, you can overcome any religious trauma that you have encountered, seen, or heard about. And And if that's not what you call it, you can recover from any situation that has caused you harm emotionally, physically, psychologically. Know that you and physically you can overcome that. And Lucretia VanDyke expressed how we have everything we need. I know some of us hear that, but I want you all to say that we have everything we need. Even if you can't see it right here, look within the walls of where you are, look within the surroundings of where you are, look within the relationships that you have with people, with nature, with the divine of your understanding, and know that you are not alone. You have the resources you need. And if you don't have any relationships that you see that are healthy, then you can begin some rituals.
Mm-hmm.
As Lucretia shared so beautifully, with spiritual bathing, the
Mm.
meditation, the intentional dance parties or body movement moments where you move your body, and moments in silence where you are intentional about what you do have, because gratitude, as she lifted earlier, hey, we can lead with gratitude as well as we can lead with love. But if we lead with gratitude and with love without bringing it to ourselves, there will still be some work to do. So
Yeah.
thank you, sis. I'm gonna um, say thank you all to those who have joined us. If you are looking for a spiritual home, um, I would love to be your virtual pastor, your spiritual director. Lucretia's gonna have the last word. I'm just gonna call us to ourselves and gather yourselves wherever you are. We're gonna take a moment, just a few seconds, to just listen to what has been shared before us, and embrace this moment. Um, Use this moment to write down anything that you want to hold on close. Um, know that you are not alone. And I invite you to join Holy Ground, and I will definitely, it would be an honor to lead you on your spiritual journey or your faith journey. And wherever you are, whomever you love, however you show up, you are sacred and you are holy. So Lucretia's going to have the last word, and it's been an honor, sis.
I know. It's always such a pleasure. It's always so brief. I can't wait to get back and just squeeze you and hold you.
I can't wait to.
And Melissa was talking about, like, understanding your community and feeling alone in those times, and that's why this ancestor prayer practice is so important to me. But I also, years ago, it was probably about 15 years ago, I wrote on a rock spiritual community, just a regular rock that I'd found on my nature walk, and I put that on my ancestor altar, and I asked them to bring me the spiritual community that would upload and uplift me and hold me in my highest and greatest good. And through my trials and tribulations, it's so interesting. I look around me now and I see that, my beloveds, the ones who really hold me to my highest and really show up and show out when I need them to. I see those prayers to God and to my ancestors being answered. So write that sacred prayer that you wish and that you long for yourself. Create yourself an altar in nature, in your home, where all of the elements are present. The pictures of the ancestors, those who've crossed over, God is there, your whole spiritual multiverse, and pray and hold yourself sacred in that moment. Thank you so much, Holy Ground, for having me. I will see you again soon. And I hope that you all come into your own deep practice of self nourishment, self love, and opening up your eyes to seeing God in a bigger way. Thank you.